Oh yeah! Here we go!
Luigi's other two spooky outings were staples for their respective consoles, the original on GameCube and Dark Moon on 3DS. They were personality-driven, atmospheric, and total leaps away from any game in the Mario franchise and its relatives. I've also come to see them as showcases for the absolute best visuals their consoles can handle. Dark Moon is in the top 3 best-looking 3DS games for me. The original launched with the GameCube and it still holds up 18 years later. Now, Luigi's Mansion 3 is here to show us just what the Switch can do, and I'm impressed. I purposely avoided as much footage as I could before picking this game up, knowing that I was going to be doing so. Because of that, I had no idea just how much the player was going to be able to interact with the environment, especially after a chill opening, watching cutscenes, and talking with Mario and company, all decidedly without the poltergust. I was awestruck by the amount of things that could be tugged, sucked, ripped, and just generally destroyed. Vases, papers, tables, cloths, sand, boxes, couch cushions, leaves, it goes on almost infinitely. Tearing apart the room has always been a major element of Luigi's Mansion games, but they went all out here. This, of course, loops back in another of Luigi's Mansion's major elements, exploration. These games are essentially point-and-click adventure games without the point-and-click. Luigi has a very limited moveset for actual traversal. While Mario can jump, Link has a sword, etc. So gameplay mainly surrounds finding a nameless switch, pulley, button, or whatever, and then activating it. Giving the player more stuff to suck up makes finding this ubiquitous lever that much more satisfying. Luigi's crippling lack of movement options is also compensated by a wide variety of tools, which also force the dozens and dozens of puzzles the player will encounter to become increasingly complicated. Luigi's equipped with a vacuum that can suck and blow, and a flashlight that can activate electronics and reveal hidden objects. Plus, new to the third installment, a plunger that can be attached to various things and then tugged, a burst that can act as either a jump or a means of interaction, and a slime version of Luigi with various drawbacks and perks. Luigi can seem a bit more daunting than he actually is. In essence, he's just another tool for the player to use to solve puzzles. The way that these abilities mix can often feel totally organic. Maybe Luigi will have to go down a drain and use his black light to fill in a pipe so Luigi can turn on the sink for whatever reason. Maybe Luigi and Luigi will need to stand on a switch so they can vacuum up some cash. The possibilities are expansive, and the new additions help keep the gameplay continually fresh. There were those few times, however, in which the game's puzzles didn't feel wholly organic. Sometimes the game just didn't communicate its puzzle as well as it could have. Sometimes the rest of the room didn't jive with the actual means of progression. Especially when I hunted down all of the gems, I found some of the puzzles somewhat unfair. Of course, this will vary from player to player, some think differently than others, and I really can't think of any way to generally help the game's puzzle designs beyond a more in-depth hint system. Yet I know some players who would rather die than use a hint, or in this case, ruin their enjoyment of an otherwise great game. I certainly wouldn't want Next Level to overdo it and make the puzzles too easy, but I can't help but feel that they were far too esoteric in some of these concepts. A specific example being one of the gems. There's a handful of vending machines in the game, the player is encouraged to plunge and destroy most of them. Yet if the player does so with this specific vending machine, they'll have to reload the game to get the gem. What they actually have to do is flash it over and over until a gem comes out. The game never presented this to me as a possibility, so it felt unfair. This is kind of a problem that is stuck to each installment, and I'd venture to say that it's not wholly cured here. Yet, even these cumbersome puzzles are so impressively integrated into the environment that they're easy to forgive. Every element of every problem is contextualized. Here there's a sunglass rack that needs to be spun to earn some cash. There's a tuba that the player needs to blow into to produce a gem. Every room in the game was meticulously sculpted, like the developers were making an intricate diorama for the player to explore, a description not too far off from the game's general playstyle. I do wish that the money, the main reward for exploring every nook, was more useful. The player can use it to purchase helpful items, but other than that, it's solely used to decide their rank after they beat the game. The "it's about the journey, not the destination" motto flourishes here, which is fine for me, but there's nothing wrong with useful collectibles. Maybe the money could have been used to purchase costumes, a la Mario Odyssey, or maybe it could have been used to purchase keys to access new optional rooms to explore. As of now, it doesn't feel like the player is being rewarded much for their diligence, and as a result, I started feeling less and less enthused about vacuuming every last object over the course of the game. One of the more inconsistent and hotly debated parts of the Luigi's Mansion games are their structures. In the original, the player was simply dropped into a giant mansion and just told to progress, really. You'd explore a room, get a key for another room, and then repeat until the game was over. Dark Moon was mission-based. You entered and left the mansions continuously. I didn't mind this more segmented nature, but it definitely made the game feel a lot less atmospheric. Luigi's Mansion 3 is sort of an amalgamation. The player does explore these floors, room by room, but they're short. You get off the elevator, hunt down the boss, and then move on. In that way, it's similar to Dark Moon, but the less linear exploration helps edge it closer to the original. Sometimes the rooms will have more than one door, for example, and the player can explore them at their own pace. There's also very little interruption from EGAD, and the player is rarely forced to return to the lab, like they were after every mission at Dark Moon. It's a nice compromise, I think. This more open sense of play, mixed with the added abilities and constantly engaging puzzles, makes Luigi's Mansion 3 another hit for the franchise. It's not particularly challenging, but it's pretty lengthy at roughly 13 hours, and you'll find it hard to lose interest in. It really feels like a game that's itching to be played, if that makes any sense. It doesn't quite force you to play the way it wants, it just gently guides you through a beautifully and intricately crafted hotel full of spooks, perfectly willing to let you stop and waste 20 minutes vacuuming up seat cushions or destroying garbage bins. So it's less like the Haunted Mansion ride and more like, I don't know, a scary maze, corn maze or something, I don't know.